I'm David from Levika Photography, and today I am bringing you my review of the Sony a6300. So physically against the a6000, this being the 6300, this being the 6000, it's identical. They have not changed the body really hardly at all. It looks pretty much the same. Everything is in the same exact spot. The one thing that you do get though now is the microphone jack. So that's a good thing. How well does this thing autofocus? It autofocuses excellent, but with Sigma DN lenses, they're still stuck in the center, but there is some salvation. Okay, there we go. So you can see, if I hit the back of the chair, that now instead of 5, we have 9 dots with the Sigma stuff. So it's still stuck in the center, but that's only on auto. The second that you put it on manual, shutter priority, aperture priority, or program mode, you can use APSC. And what I've been using is if I go into menu and go into the focus area and then go to flexible spot. So you can move it around and then you hit your spot that you want to be on and it locks in. And this works perfect with the Sigma DN lenses. So you don't really have to freak out about not having full automatic all over the entire screen. It's really not a big deal. I prefer center spot anyway because I find it's way more accurate.
I have you now.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
No, not really.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't. Ha-ha.
Dang it.
That's a huge improvement over the original a6000. If you're shooting a Sony a6000, why would you want to go to this camera? Well, it does have better AF. It's supposed to work better with adapters. It has 4K video, and it has the same slow-mo feature that all of Sony's cameras came out with last year. So that part is kind of cool, but there is an issue with doing the slow-mo. It requires a different kind of card. The Sandisk 64GB Extreme Plus SDXC1. And this is actually a very good rock-solid card, and this works perfectly with the Sony a6000. So I'll recommend that in the description below. The 4K image quality is excellent. Unfortunately, I don't have a 4K TV or 4K monitors, so all I can do is downsample it to 1080p. This other guy that reviews Sony equipment or camera equipment on YouTube, his name is Max Yuriev. Here he did a comparison video with the A7R2 to the a6300 and did it through all ISO settings. Basically, what he was showing is how much better the a6300 is for 4K video, and it is good. I mean, excellent. The link to see this video will be in the description down below. So the video functions that I can show you in 1080. Let's take a look at the slow-mo. And here's some video of my golf swing, of all things. Yeah, so overall, the slow-mo capability is excellent. I mean, this thing is a video-eating demon. And it's kind of funny because compared to the original a6000, this thing is a video overheating machine. I mean, it just overheats when you're shooting video. It doesn't matter if it's 30 degrees outside or 130 degrees outside, it's going to overheat. The original a6000 was pretty much anywhere from 8 to 14 minutes depending upon the ambient temperature before it overheated. And it overheated consistently. So in the last 2 days I had put this through every scenario that I possibly could in every possible environment and on every video setting, seeing if I could get it to overheat. And just by flipping out the screen and touching the back, which is usually where the a6000 gets hot, it was actually still cool. So I don't think it was overheating at all. It's been rock solid in video. The video quality is amazing. Even though it's the same exact body, they added one lever, they made it weather sealed, they gave us a stronger lens mount, a better EVF. But outside of that, what was the other major change? Well, that was in the sensor design. And even though the sensor is the exact same specs, they switched it from aluminum to copper as far as the wiring goes. And we've seen this in the past. They did the same thing on the A7. When they came out with the A7 II, they also switched it over from aluminum to copper. And to be honest with you, I saw no changes in the image quality there. But in this case, is there an actual change? Well, let's take a look and find out. The video quality is amazing, but the image quality is a little bit of a mixed bag here. ISO 6400. And the a6300 is on the left and the a6000 is on the right. You can tell by the file names in case you get confused. The higher file name, 5205, is obviously off the a6000, whereas 24 is the file name for the a6300 because I just got the thing. So anyway, let's get out of here. Obviously the noise reduction is a little more intense on the a6000, but is it really better? I mean, if we look at the eyeball here, you don't really see a difference. And when we get to the beak, you don't really see a difference either. So, you know, I just can't tell. And especially if we look into the wing area right here and where the wind-up knob is, it actually looks better on the a6000 than it does on the a6300. So, JPEG-wise, you know, these are just straight off the camera at their current settings. So it doesn't really tell us a whole lot. So if we take this one step further and let's compare the actual raw images with all of the data turned off. Noise reduction turned off, everything's turned off. So if we look in here this way, then the eyes pretty much look the same. The beak looks sharper on the a6000, but the hair that's next to the beak looks better on the a6300. There's just more detail in here. And then if we look at the wind-up mechanisms, it looks better on the a6000, but this area here looks better on the a6300, whereas the candle, jar candle in the back, you can't even tell the difference between the two. So it's really negligible as far as which one's better. I really don't see much of a difference here. So let's close that. Now let's take a look at the wall behind it. And here is the same wall. This is JPEG off the camera. And obviously you can tell here that the noise reduction is slightly more aggressive on the a6300. And let's take a look at the EXIF data. And we're on ISO 6400 on both, and 1/60th of a second on both, and f2.8 on both. So they should be pretty much identical, but they're not. I mean, obviously the color balance is completely different. And this is just off the camera. So, you know, if we look around here, as far as noise reduction goes, the a6300 is not being nearly as aggressive as the a6000 is, and it's, you know, holding on to a little bit more detail. And when you look at the image overall, it actually looks pretty good once you get zoomed out. But zoomed in, I mean, there's all kinds of detail loss. So let's close that. Now let's check out that same image. Okay, so this is the same image with noise reduction and everything turned off on both. And again, almost impossible to tell. And when I turned everything off, I went in and made sure that each setting in the Sony raw image converter was set on standard. And then I did a white balance color picker on both in this area right here and right here. And you know, they're just slightly different, which is very strange. Overall, the a6300, when you look at the images coming off of it, they look slightly warmer. But this could just be a camera setting. So that's why I went in and shut everything off to do this comparison. And here they look really close. I don't see any more detail in one or the other. So this new sensor design, even though it helps video, it just doesn't do squat for stills in this case. Now, there is one more test, and that's the actual dynamic range. So what I did was I took this image here, and this is ISO 6400, and I shot it 2 stops darker than what it needed to be. So in the Sony RAW data converter again, I went in, adjusted these 2 stops brighter off of both cameras, again with the settings all at 0, and noise reduction and everything turned off. And this is where you actually do know that the new sensor design does help. It has increased the dynamic range just by a little tiny bit. But again, this looks terrible at this setting. So, you know, the a6000 and a6300 are, as far as still images go, to me, they're still pretty much the same. You have just a hair slightly better, more dynamic range on the a6300. And you have new ISO settings that you'll probably never use simply because in still images, anything over ISO 1600 is going to be pretty awful anyway. With new sensor design and the way they talk about it, you think that it would be light years ahead, but really it's just not. It's just a tiny bit better as far as still images go. Okay, rolling shutter and what you want to know. Now this is done in 1080p at 120 frames per second for slow-mo, and obviously we're not getting a rolling shutter here. But if we turn around and record in 4K, then you start to see some rolling shutter, and you can see how this slides back and forth like jello. Now the other problem is in still images. This is silent shutter mode, and in silent shutter mode it does actually create a problem if you're trying to follow something. Now in these photos I was following the cars as they were driving by, and you can see how the building behind them is slanted. So it is a problem, but it's not too bad. Okay, the other big question we have is, did they improve the Hotshoe? Well, the sync speeds are exactly the same. Nothing's changed there. But I've got a Youngnow 563 on here, and 250th of a second, it actually seems to be doing just fine and not being weird like it was on the a6000. Somewhere I heard that the LAEA3 would focus with the a6300. It doesn't. It just, you can manual focus lenses through it, but everything just says invalid with this lens, and it doesn't really matter what you put it on. So I only have this around so I could try out different alpha lenses. I did test the LAEA4 on the Sony a6000, which actually seemed to work fairly well, but I don't like that adapter because that stupid translucent mirror that's in there. I don't like anything that costs me a stop of light. But this one, because it's a pass-through, I figured would actually finally work with this. Well, either there's something wrong with my adapter or it just doesn't work with this. So anyway, no autofocus with the LAEA3 adapter, which is the full-frame pass-through adapter for Sony Alpha Mount. Kind of a bummer, but let's try the COM light and see how that goes. Okay, so it's getting dark out right now, and I've got the a6300 with the COM light adapter and the Canon L 16 to 35 f2.8 version 2 lens on here. So let's see how this works. And it looks like I can pretty much hit everything out here without any issues. Crank my ISO up to 800. So you can obviously see our green speckles everywhere. That means that we're getting actual phase detection points, and it seems to be hitting everything. So the bottom line is the COM light adapter actually works really well with this lens on the a6300. So go ahead and walk towards me. Let's see if we can pick up his face. Even though his face is tiny, but the autofocus is starting to pick him up. There it is. We got him. Whoa, a little too close. Wait, there you go. Obviously it's tracking backwards too. So that does seem to work very well. Okay, so let's go through the menu settings really quick. As far as the image size goes, you got large 24 megapixel aspect ratio. The aspect ratio still hasn't changed, which is kind of a bummer. I'd like to see 1:1 because I like to shoot square sometimes, but not a biggie. So anyway, let's go back here. Okay, so quality, RAW, and JPEG is what I have it set on right now. You can do panorama still, that hasn't changed. Okay, so the file formats, now you've got 4K, and then you've got super high quality HD, and then the regular 1080 HD, and MP4, and then under your recording you have Super 35 60. Now in 4K this is actually 30 and 100 megabytes in Super 35, and then, or at least I believe it is. Let me change it here. So let me go to the menu, go over here. That way you guys can see what's actually here. Yeah, so that's what we got. So 30p, 100 megabytes, still pretty good. Or you can even crop it down, 24p at 100 megabytes on Super 35. And that's actually kind of nice if you want to shoot a little tighter with just one prime. You know, it actually works very well for that. But if I was going to shoot on 4K, that's actually the setting that I'd like to have it on, just because 24p gives you more of that cinematic quality. Okay, now these settings right here are for recording your slow-mo. And do you want to do it in 24p or 30p 16? And right here it says 120 frames, 4 times slow motion, or if you go to the 24, you get 5 times slow motion. So this is what I set my golf swing at. Okay, so the focus area, the expanded flexible spot. This I love. I love the fact that we can move it around now and keep it on the screen, and that's the way it's been set up. And the only problem is if you go too fast with it, you know, you got to be careful with it. Otherwise, if you try to like go up or accidentally turn the dial, you're changing some other settings. So I wish I had a little joystick for that, but this works so much better. But I just think that that's cool that you can actually use your flexible spot while recording. Marker display. So this is for video. If you turn this on, it will tell you, let's go to the second area, marker display settings, your safety zone, or if you want center or aspect ratio, guide frame, you can turn all this on or off. So I put the safety zone at 90% just so that way I know the area that I'm recording when I'm setting up. It's easier for me to figure out if my head is cut off in a shot or not. So that's what that's for. Right here I've got live view setting display effects off. If you decide to shoot in low light quite a bit, turning this off will allow you to see in the dark. And I've already done a video on that on the a6000. Everything applies from that video. To find your frame rate, you can switch between 120 makes it so much better and so much easier on your eyes, but it does chew up the battery, just so you know. Let me see here. Everything else is pretty much the same except for silent shooting. This is where you turn it on and off. That is really buried in the menu to get to that. So it's number 5 under the gear to get to that. Copyright info. I really wish the original a6000 had this. This is one of the biggest things that drove me nuts about Sony. The A7R still doesn't have it, even though I thought they'd fix that in a firmware update, but at least we have it now. Okay, so what did I think about this overall? Well, let's start off with the things that you guys hear about the most. Okay, 4K video. This does an excellent job. Video, because of the new design of the sensor, actually has really low noise, and much lower noise than the original video, even at 1080p, than the original a6000. So that is excellent. But, and the 4K video quality coming off of this, I think, is excellent based on the samples that we've seen. So that's a good thing. And as far as autofocusing goes, having the spot focus feature and being able to move that around and use it like an actual DSLR is excellent. Huge, huge deal. The fact that you have bracketing, all kinds of different bracketing options now in the camera is excellent. The EXIF data for the copyright info, these are all things I've been asking for a long time. The EVF, way, way better than the original a6000. This I can live with. That's a good EVF. The fact that it has a microphone jack on it is really good. The fact that we're still stuck with the multi-interface Hotshoe is bad. Although this Hotshoe does not seem to be as problematic as the original a6000 Hotshoe with getting off-brand flashes to work. It seems like everything that I've shoved on here seems to work. So I think we're safe there. Same sync speeds, nothing's really changed there. The camera itself is not any faster. It still shoots 11 frames per second. Now it just happens to flash in between each frame instead of giving you one continuous view. So I don't think there's a huge advantage to that part of it. As far as stills go, the new sensor design improves video immensely, but somehow it does the opposite for stills. So the stills photography part of it up to ISO 1600 has not changed at all. But anyway, image quality as far as stills go, you're not gaining anything. So, you know, nothing to do there. As far as adapters go with this camera, the LAEA3 couldn't get it to work autofocus wise. But I don't know if that's my adapter or it just won't work with autofocusing. I heard it would with this body, so that's what I was excited about because I've actually owned one for a while, but no such luck. The comm light does seem to focus better. And basically, Sony's getting really smart about this. They're realizing a lot of people are adapting lenses. So if their cameras will work with adapters, they get that many more people using their systems, and eventually they'll win them over completely. But if they can just get them with the body, I guess that's one way to do it. What's going to happen to the a6000? Well, this one, at some point I'll probably end up converting to infrared. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. I hope you found it informative. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel for more information like this, and otherwise you guys have a good day. We'll talk to you later.